Hello, everyone. Welcome to vFairs Epic Events podcast. Today, I have an extremely special guest, Andrew. Andrew Roby went from being a kid in the inner city of Miami to traveling the world during his time in the US Army. Now, as an event producer, he uses his diverse experience to craft immersive wedding and event experiences. He has been recognized as an official industry leader by BizBash, Forbes, CNN, and the New York Times for his efforts to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in the events industry. Most of all, Robbie finds meaning in empowering marginalized communities through his work with charitable organizations. With his gift for event storytelling, Robbie creates a unique opportunity for every client. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jonas. I appreciate it.
Just want to find out, do you typically go with Andrew or Robbie? Kind of help me.
You, as honestly, I go with both because I still have military friends that call me Roby, which is what we call everyone in the military by their last name. But my close friends call me Andrew, so either one of them works perfectly.
It's Muhammad Yunus Sajjad, so a lot of people call me just Muhammad, like my real name.
But
Yunus.
you're using your last name.
Which is my real name. So because this is more like a middle name. So again, I can totally understand when you say, I go by both because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I'm fine. Like I've spent years listening to both, and
Yeah.
yeah. And if you can just help us find out, just walk us through your journey. What led you to join the events industry?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned in the intro, Eunice, is that I was in the army and I was working, and so part of that on our downtime was we allowed, the military allowed us to be a part of an organization called Better Opportunities for Single Service Members. It was a volunteer based organization that helped people who were recently moved to the area but didn't have a sense of community. They didn't have family. When I first joined the military, my first duty station was in Germany. So thousands of miles away from family, from friends, from community, and I didn't know anyone. So the program benefited people who were in a similar situation that I was in, that allowed us to develop friendships and also do various activities and events. So we did everything. I volunteered to do Coca-Cola 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. We did various fundraisers. We did various like run walks. We even did fashion shows. So there was a lot of different types of events that were going on that needed people to support those events. And I was one of those people. And I just found it really fascinating doing the various things that I was doing. But the crazy part about it is that I was also in the Old Guard. So, if anyone is unfamiliar with the Old Guard, it is the most prestigious military army unit in America, where it allows service members to be trained on how to do ceremonial duties. And those ceremonial duties range from the tomb of the unknown soldier. You are laying to rest many of our fallen soldiers. You're doing foreign and national events. And one of my biggest events, my first events, was laying to rest former President Ronald Reagan. So the mix of the better opportunities for single service members plus being in the old guard really shaped me seeing events in a new perspective, because coming into the military, the only thing I knew of was like family reunions and birthdays. And so getting to that point, it really changed my perspective on events. So that literally, I feel, led me to doing events once I got out of the military.
Wow, a very unique background that led you to this industry. I was going through your LinkedIn bio. It says that you help hotels and events rise to their fullest potential. I really like this term, rise to their fullest potential, whether it's for individual or for anything. And your experience also is in creating events that build communities, not just events that run smoothly. What's the difference, and why does it matter?
So I think that there's a big difference in events and community, and I think now we're yearning for that. Since the pandemic, I think the pandemic was a very key stepping stone to highlighting how much we needed each other and how much we wanted to excel and do better. And I think that that sense of community is so key when it comes to events, because we're all here in person. We're all navigating so many different things in our lives, personal and professional, and we want that sense of connection with people. But I think that there is an opportunity for events, and even on the hotel side, to understand how people are navigating in life and how they can use an event or how they can come and rest and recharge and rejuvenate at a hotel to give them that sense of community, because we never know who we're going to bump into. We never know who we're going to see and meet and develop friendships with, even create long lasting relationships with. And so I want to, make sure that our clients, whenever we're auditing a hotel or whenever we're producing an event, they understand that it's not just the technical side, it's not just the programming side of events or how a person checks in or if the restaurant's ready at a hotel. It's much deeper than that. And I think that our industry has to get on a more interpersonal level as it relates to developing and producing and thinking about event strategy for those interpersonal skills, that sense of community, as well as our hotels, because we foster so much in a hotel, we foster so much in a venue that it's crazy to not understand deeper levels of how we can have a community and how we can develop and in charge and enrich, those communities when they're at our event, when they're at our location. So I think that those things are really important to me, and I try to make sure that I educate my clients a little bit more on those details.
Nice. And you describe yourself as offering your gift rather than a service. Again, I love the concept behind it. What does that mean in practice? And how do clients usually react when you push them beyond the brief?
Yeah. So every time I meet, even my existing clients, but every time I meet a new client, it's always conversations around logistics, right? I am not a logistical planner. I That's is not something that I focus on. It is something that we do, but more times than not, I'm not the one that's handling logistics. I'm the one that's handling experience, and I think that that is the gift that I bring to the table and how I foster better events for my clients, because you are hiring us based off of our knowledge to be able to transform people when they come to your event. And that's the gift that I give, is that it's all about transformation. It's all about making sure that people feel intentional about what they're doing at their event, and they feel like they're getting a breakthrough, because people come to events with a need. They have a purpose, and that is what we want to make sure that we facilitate. So it's not, hey, I can do a timeline and make sure everything gets done on time, or hey, I can look at, your banquet order and make sure everything is good to go for hotel staff as well as AV and everybody else. It really is deeper than that. And so that's what I like to explain to our clients, because it ensures that I am part of their process. It makes them feel like I am a strategic partner versus just this one-off, event professional that's coming in that just is here to make sure the invoice, gets processed. So that's what I like to focus on.
Love that. Again, you work with so many of these industries, nonprofits, associations, hotels, brands. What's one area of improvement that you see across all of them? Like, regardless of the budget or size, like where do you think that each one of can improve?
I think selflessness is probably the biggest thing I think can be improved, because we all want our KPIs. We all want our goals and whatever else. We want our board of directors. We want our sponsors to be happy. But we can do a lot more in delving into who our attendees are and their experiences, whether it's in a hotel or whether it's at an event. And so, yes, our needs are important. The client's needs are important, but without attendees, without guests staying at locations, we don't have anything. So I think we have to do far more work on making sure we understand who our audience is, how they navigate when they're in our hotels or how they navigate throughout our event, and how to continue to improve that journey for them. Because oftentimes we see attendees or guests as a one off. They're staying for a couple of days at a hotel and that's it. Or they're coming to this particular event and then that's it. But that's not the case. Our attendees, our guests have a journey. They're in and out of relationships with us, but the first time that they interact with us should not be repetitive. So the second time that they interact with us should be a different experience, a more elevated experience, and so on and so forth. So I think that we have to do a lot more in making sure we curate that journey with them and make sure that they're actually benefiting from us and not just us benefiting from them.
Love it.
Yeah.
And you have helped charities raise more than $25 million in donor support. That's a big number. What's the difference between designing an event where the financial outcome is the explicit goal versus a corporate event or a brand event?
Yeah, so I don't think that it's that much the same difference. Honestly, yes, you have a $25 million goal or whatever that goal is. I still don't think that the attendee journey is different. I think that how you curate that journey is the different part of it, but making sure that you are focused on their journey is key. So with a charity fundraiser, it is a more emotional event. So that journey needs to speak on an emotional level versus a corporate event. A corporate event can be a little, more casual, but have a different journey that attendee is going in. But I think that the emotional side of it for a charity is what you want to highlight a little bit more, and it's storytelling. So often we miss the storytelling, and that is a means of connecting a little bit deeper with who our audience is. So if I'm trying to raise funds for a charity organization, that's storytelling and who tells the story. I don't want to necessarily get a keynote speaker that's a celebrity keynote speaker that's telling a story, because while that person may be, honest and relatable, it's not as valuable as someone who has directly benefited from that organization telling their story. So I think that those are the types of touch points that I want to make sure is embedded into the audience's journey as they're navigating through that, but it's also building that up. You don't want to just open up a charity event and start a paddle raise and start asking for money. You have to build that process up and give those attendees the right journey to navigate to, so that way when you do ask them, to start donating, it's automatic. They feel the tug on their hearts. They're immediately wanting to give and support and extend that level of effort that organization is actually doing within that community. So that's what I would say would be the difference.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I was going through again your profile, I noticed one of the things that mentioned that you saved one client 164,357 and 54 cents. Like that's a very, very, very specific number. What happened, and what does that story say about how most event planners approach budgeting?
Yeah, it is a specific number because I like to be matter of fact. I like to make sure that people don't just say that, oh, this is just a random number thought out of my head. This is the exact number that we saved our clients from. And the thing is that our clients mean well, but that does not mean that they actually know how to plan events well. And so oftentimes we get clients that book venues before they book us. They book AV companies before they book us, and they're already in contract, with those organizations that say that I'm committing this amount of money to this agency or this AV company, this hotel, and we're moving forward. And it's pretty hard to get out of those contracts or even to negotiate those contracts if you don't know how to do it properly. So when our client came to us, they were ready to sign the contract for food and beverage and also for AV. And this number in particular was for food and beverage alone, just food and beverage that we saved them from.
For how
And
many people?
yeah,
Like this is a big number.
it's a huge number. It's a huge number. So what I did is that I went through what their requirements were for their food and beverage and what they wanted to do for their attendees, how they wanted to feed their attendees, breaks and coffee and all that kind of stuff. We went through that requirement, and then we based that along with what the hotel was saying that they needed to have in order to meet those needs. And so a lot of it was overage. A lot of it was unnecessary breaks built in or extended, breaks, 12 hours, 16 hours of breaks built into it when our guests weren't even going to be in such locations, during those times. So we literally went through a fine tooth comb and went and said, okay, this is what we feel we need based off of the numbers you've given us, price per person, for meals, for buffets, for breaks, whatever. And this is the number that we've come up with. This is the number that you've come up, or the hotel has come up with. And we allowed our client to figure out, hey, which one do you want to go with? And they took ours, and it literally saved them. But I think the biggest thing is not just saving them from that amount of money. It is, what can you do with six figures in your programming? What can you do that? Can you use that for another event? Can you use that for another program that's been tabled that you've been trying to fund? So that's why I think it's so critical for us to talk about money and to review everything, but to not sign contracts immediately once you start your process and get somebody with a second opinion.
That
Yeah.
again, you have mentioned a couple of times, you and your team brings expertise so clients can show up and enjoy. But
Mhm.
in practice, how do you handle clients who wants to just micromanage every decision, especially when you know that they're stating things wrong?
Yeah. I think a lot of our clients want to micromanage only because, and it's a level of trust. And I'll be honest, when you bring somebody on for the first time, you have no idea how they're going to execute your event. You don't know if it's going to be according to plan or not. Sure, we have a resume. Sure, we have client referrals. Sure, we have videos and photos and all that kind of stuff to show, what we've done to previous clients. But that doesn't mean we're going to replicate that for their client, right? And so a level of uncertainty is there. And the way to navigate that uncertainty is by trying to micromanage. But one thing that we do in the beginning, before we even sign contracts, during the initial stage of onboarding, is explain over and over our value, our process, and how we work. There is some things that we do with our clients. There's some things we do together. There's some things our clients do by themselves. But everything that we're doing is going to be for their good. And as long as they know that we are their partner, their strategic partner, that we are mutually invested, in the success of that event, using those types of words and that phrasing helps to decrease the level of micromanagement and also increase the level of trust, because until we execute that event, it's still going to be a level of uncertainty. And even after we've executed and they want us to come and do another one, we're still gaining their trust along the way. But the more that we are able to explain what we're doing, how we're doing it, the benefits that come from what we do, the more we're instilling trust in them and the more that we're decreasing the level of need to micromanage the work that we do.
And again, this year we are hearing many, many times from our customers that the budgets are tight. So when the budgets are tight, what's the first thing most planners cut that they absolutely shouldn't? And what are they keeping things that actually, are not moving the needle?
The first thing they cut are the event professionals. I mean, that's the first thing that they're trying to cut. The first thing that money is spent on is the venue and food and beverage. And then followed by that is AV, and then you hire your planner, and then you're trying to get your planner to navigate whatever the remaining balance is. And so I think that yes, budgets are going to continue to be cut. Things are going to the priorities, the requirements, the requests for events are going to continue to increase. So I think that it has to start with developing a strategic plan. So many people say, oh, well, I have a budget. Now let's go ahead and plan this event. But before all of that happens, you have to have a strategic plan that identifies what your priorities for this event is and where budget needs to be allocated. And when you're doing that, then you can have a better understanding of, okay, well, if I said to myself that this event budget is $500,000, well, I can then do an estimate budget to understand where things go based off of what my needs are. So if you know you have a heavy AV package, then we know that a good chunk of that money is going to go towards AV, but you also should have a priority list and then a secondary list as well, and be open and flexible to compromise, because not everything, even if you have we've seen $1 million budgets where our clients have still had to compromise, on that. But it goes to making sure you have a strategic plan so that way you're carrying out the priorities first. And then if you have things left over, you can meet the needs of those secondary requests.
And like when you use event tech to streamline and for the planning process, for the production process, what tools are you actually using? What's the difference between the tech that helps versus tech that just adds overhead and cost?
Yes, and I this is a conversation I see a lot on LinkedIn, is event tech and all the nuances and all the new, features and things like that. But I get very strict on what I use and if I need to use it. If there is not an answer to the why, I'm not going to use it whatsoever. So things that I commonly use in regards to event tech is first registration, because I think that's the first touch point to any guest coming to an event. If the registration tech is not good, and that's from a kiosk, that's from scanning QR codes, that's from being able to print automatically through a printer, anything that without human involvement, I want to be able to use something like that. The next thing is the event app. I think that the event app is something that in the past we talked about it, and it was something that, wow, let's see how it works. But oftentimes our guests aren't using it as much. But I think that a lot of community is found in that event app and how we're using AI in order to actually play matchmaking and making sure that guests are able to ensure that they're meeting the people that they want to meet, that they're attending the sessions that they want to attend, and as well as the event activations with our sponsors, and giving our attendees more information and more awareness of our sponsors through the app itself. But now I'm starting to see a lot more on the AV side and how we're making environments, room environments, a little bit more entertaining and more cohesive to a brand, their brand colors, their elements, and how we're using that more effectively. And that could be everything from something simple like a teleprompter for a speaker to be able to use, all the way up to now we're seeing like some of the most crazy things in regards to AV and lighting, and how we're using technology in order to cue things. So that way, I'm not, as a showrunner, sitting there trying to cue everything, trying to prep everybody to be able to do this. It's already built into our schedule, our run of show. And so all of those things are really fascinating in regards to event tech. But I think people need to really ask, why are we using it? Do we need to have it? And if you don't need to have it, don't use it. Because one thing I hate seeing is someone using event tech, like let's say, for instance, a event registration site, and it's only once. And then they go and they find something else and they're trying to use that because it's a little bit more shinier. And it's like, that's a waste of money. So, yeah.
You have been a motivation speaker for almost over a decade now, speaking on topics like risk management, communication, and team building, things that sound more like corporate training than event planning. How has that shaped the way you design events?
I think so. I first, started developing team building when I was in the army. And that was so critical because, if we're breaching a room and we aren't sure who's in that room, how many enemies are in that room, what type of munitions or weapons that they may have in that room, we're counting on our teammates either in front of us or behind us that are stacked up on that wall, ready to breach that room to make sure that they know what it is that they need to do and how to do it effectively. And I think that that carries over to how we, train other event planners through our CEO planner cohort, or how we're actually training our corporate clients on picking the right sessions, the breakout sessions, and how to facilitate key team building with that. But it's really critical because the more we're able to develop teams, the easier it is to make sure that we give them agency. We empower them to do what it is that they need to do without us micromanaging them, without us hovering over them to make sure that those things are done. But I think that oftentimes we're so caught up on the logistics. We're so caught up with what has to happen and being that person to oversee everything, that we're not building our teams. We're not enriching our teams to carry out those things for them to do it themselves versus us having to do everything. So a lot of times, even with my corporate clients, there may be a committee, and that committee feels like they're responsible for doing everything. And I always ask, well, what does each person on this committee do? What are they responsible for? Where's the level of trust between each person to understand that they're going to carry out what they need to carry out, and everybody's going to benefit because they're working towards the big picture? So a lot of those issues do arise on the corporate side as well. But I think my experience, with the military has helped facilitate a lot of key team building rituals and training sessions, and making sure events operate with a great team because we've curated a great team to make it happen.
And if you can give one piece of unfiltered advice to an event planner who's technically excellent but struggling to grow, what would it be?
Focus on your value. Focus on what your breakthrough is. If I am an event planner and I'm trying to make sure that I can scale and be more successful, it is always going to be, how can I invest more into myself in order to showcase my value? Not talk about logistics, but talk about your value. Develop that strategic plan. Make sure that you are being seen as someone that is resilient, someone that is going to be part of the client's organization and not just a one-off planner. I think the more that you work deeper into your bit or on your business versus in your business, by understanding customer service, understanding your value proposition, understanding how to network and navigate within this industry and meet the right people, and also how to sell, how to pitch, how to execute what it is that you say that you're going to do amazing.
And you must have been to so many destinations, venues, hotels. Which one is your favorite?
As far as the destination, Barcelona, hands down. I've been to Barcelona over, I think, 6 or 7 times. I absolutely love it. It's a coastal city. I'm from Miami, so it reminds me of being in Miami. It's a coastal feel. People are amazing. It's a walkable city, very pedestrian friendly. I love it. I love it.
And if people want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yes, the best way is on our website, Andrew Roby Events. Of course, you can find us under Andrew Roby Events on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're everywhere.
And it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.